What is going on, everybody? Starting a little early tonight. So if you aren't in here, get in here. If you're seeing this now or later, we apologize, but that's just the way things work sometimes. So welcome back to another edition of First and Ted. Ted was out of the country and flying, and there was weather involved. So I said, what the hell? Let's just do it Thursday. So we're here, ready to talk some 49ers, Cardinals, but maybe more of an overview of just everything the 49ers have been, I guess, the last couple weeks. And look forward to getting into the playoffs very shortly. But what was it like observing the 49ers from vacation and watching that kind of real just back and forth game against the Raiders where the Niners looked quite vulnerable at times?
Yeah, they did look quite vulnerable. Obviously, Hufanga and Lenore got beat up pretty good in the secondary. Brock Purdy's lack of arm strength showed up a few times. I bashed him a little bit in my summary article. But ultimately, he had to come from behind win. He had a beautiful pass to Kittle where he was rolling left and hit Kittle in the back of the end zone. It reminded me a lot of the catch just to the left instead of to the right. I mean, it wasn't a sprint left option, I don't think, but just the way the rollout ended up materializing, he got pushed out of the pocket and really made a beautiful throw. So, I mean, I'll say I wasn't super surprised by the Raiders' weapons. I mean, they've got Devontae Adams, arguably a top 5, if not better, receiver. They got Darren Waller, who is easily a top 5 tight end, at least for receiving purposes. And then, Josh Jacobs leading the league in rushing, and Renfro, one of the better slot receivers. So, I mean, the thing that surprised me was Stidham playing so well. He was obviously showed a lot of mobility and a lot of accuracy and a lot of poise, at least early on in the game. And so that definitely caught me unaware. I guess I'd say the Raiders' offensive line, but I feel like that was more of a case of the refs letting them get away with holding quite a bit like they did with another AFC West team that we might know, the Kansas City Chiefs from the Super Bowl. So I saw a lot of parallels there with the way they treated that O-line, which is not a very good O-line, but the refs made them look good by letting them hold excessively.
Yeah, that was a game I felt the Niners kind of needed to go through. So as negative as I felt about some of the things that were going on during the game, whether offensive or defensively, the Niners haven't had that much adversity through this huge winning streak. And Brock Purdy hasn't really had much adversity through the winning streak. So it's kind of good to see the 49ers be tested and him be tested. And we're going to jump on a lot of that in a little bit. But I just thought it was, a lot of people were saying the Niners should lose a game before they hit the playoffs because it's like, who can win this many games? I think it might have been 49er-minded Bashar was like, I don't like this win streak. We need to lose before the playoffs, or somebody else. I'm not exactly sure. Point being, I kind of agree with that. So this game possibly was the closest thing to a loss just because, we played as poor as you could play on defense against the backup quarterback. And, Brock struggled at times on offense. So, but in the end, the Niners found a way to win, and they're the better team. So that's all you could really ask for in the end. You want the win. Yeah, sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's really not something you want to go and rewatch if you're a person who does content creating, because it might worry you with what's going to happen going forward down the line. But I was listening to he works for NFL Films. I'm trying to think of the guy. He studies film. He was on this morning. But he was asked if the Niners have a huge problem on their hands and if we should be worried about the defense and should we worry about the Niners in general. And he kind of pretty much dispelled that by saying, teams have games like that all the time. where they underestimated an opponent, and Bosa was quoted as saying, "We won't do that again." So it was obvious that they maybe went into that game with a little bit of a relaxed mindset. And Coach Shanahan was actually quoted with saying that was one thing that he worried about because they clinched so early. The 49ers didn't clinch home field and the playoff spot until the final week of the 2019 season. So it was definitely interesting that, they had something to play for even in the final game of the season, whereas this team, they got everything kind of set, and so maybe they took their foot off the gas. But regardless, they got the win. That's all that really matters. So I'm happy.
I'm happy too. I mean, I do think it's more than just one game, though. I mean, there's obviously the Raiders game. Obviously, you look at the Chiefs game. Chiefs, I will make a lot of, facts, I call them, or other people call excuses about a lot of people being injured for the Chiefs game. No Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa,
Ward, dinged up.
Javarius Ward, both coming back from the groin. We had Trent Williams coming back from the high ankle sprain. McGlinchey probably not ready to come back from the strained calf, but played anyway. And there was quite a bit more than that. I mean, Drake Greenlaw went down early in the second quarter. Drake Greenlaw went down in this game too. But it's more than just the Chiefs though. I mean, I would argue that the Dolphins showed us some deficiencies in our defense, but Tua just missed some throws. And you could also argue the same thing with Mariota and the Falcons. Granted, 7 of those points came off of Jeff Wilson Jr. fumble 6, but Mariota moved the ball well. He threw well against us. There were some similarities between that game. Just the Falcons just didn't score as much as the Raiders did. But we've seen some glimpses of it. I mean, pretty much ever since Emmanuel Mosley went down, we've had some weakness in the secondary there with Diamador Lenore, and then obviously Hufanga has been struggling lately. So I mean, I'd say most playoff teams don't worry me too much, but some that would worry me a little would be Green Bay Packers if they do make the playoffs, and the Eagles would probably be my biggest concerns on the NFC side, and then obviously big three in the AFC, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Bengals would all concern me.
Yeah.
If our secondary can't tighten things up a little bit or get better pass rush. I mean, there's some good news though. I mean, Kinlaw, he played 16 snaps against the Commanders and 22 against the Raiders. So it sounds like he's ramping up for the playoffs, which is when he'll be needed. Kevin Gibbons was back in practice today. That's exciting. Like Kinlaw was out at the beginning of practice and I was starting to freak out. But then David Lombardi reported that it was just an illness, not his knee, luckily. So, I mean, so every time he's missing.
For a big guy, man, he has a lot of – he's a little bit on the sensitive side.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But as long as it's not that knee, then I'm feeling pretty good about things with his prognosis. And obviously Kevin Gibbons would be a big addition. We probably could have seen that coming with us letting Akeem Spence be released. I think we picked him back up on the practice squad, but we definitely risked somebody signing him by doing that. And so that should have been our clue that Gibbons was probably coming back soon.
One thing that I've noticed, and we can bang on the secondary, rightfully so, but I haven't seen the pass rush be anything more than Nick Bosa for a while. For successive games, where if Nick Bosa's not, being all world and causing havoc, the Niners haven't, and everyone's like, well, pressures are still more, effective than sacks. And I agree to that to an extent, but I didn't see a lot of pressure in that Raiders game. I mean, there was some here and there, but it wasn't on a regular basis. And the one thing I've noticed, if the Niners end up getting bounced in this playoffs, because of their defense, there's definitely some areas where I'd like to see them do some things in the offseason, however much they can. One being, I want another speed rusher on the other side of Bosa. The Niners don't have that other dude. Drake Jackson possibly was going to be that dude, but he's just raw and young. He looks like he needs to lose a little bit of weight. He seems motivated and he seems like he cares to play. If you look at him, he's a big kid. Like when he got that tipped interception, he was like so happy on the sideline, right? So that definitely is not a question about him. I don't question anything about his character or nothing. I just think there's Nick Bosa, who's just like this just this superhuman who has every pass rush move in the book. And then you got all these other guys that they're really good players, but they don't have that one thing that they do well. They're all just like really solid guys. So that and definitely you got to keep invested in that secondary. I know, like I said, we don't have a ton of money we're gonna be working with. We're gonna be trying to get Bosa, but get Bosa signed. But the Niners are definitely there's definitely cause for concern on the defense to where I'm nervous about going against pretty much anybody who can play offense with it has good skill position players. They can move in the pocket. So, but listen, they can get good against the Cardinals. Maybe they get their confidence back because I think their confidence you could tell just by the way the guys were carrying themselves after that game that they were happy they won, but they could tell they weren't very happy with their performance. So, we'll see. I mean, it's week 18. I don't know how much you can change and adjust the final week of the season, but they need to going forward into the playoffs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think I keep wondering if Janoris Jenkins might be a help in pass coverage. I mean, clearly Lenore is really good in run fit, really good tackler. But maybe Janoris Jenkins or maybe Ambry Thomas. I don't know. It's hard to say Ambry's name just because he was so slow to come on in 2021. And then he played well towards the end of the season, the last couple games of the season or the last game of the season, and then into the playoffs. But then in the NFC Championship game, I felt like he got burned a few times, or they just figured out the same thing the Bengals did, how to put guys into the deep post and or deep corner routes that were splitting between Ambry and our safeties, Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tart. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see a better corner to go across. I mean, I love Emmanuel Mosley, but I don't know if he'll be back, and we don't know if he'll ever be the same after an ACL. Knock on wood, hopefully he will, and hopefully that's our answer right there because he should be pretty affordable. But it would be nice to have some sort of insurance policy for him. And then, Drake Jackson, he's doing great. His rookie season here in 2022 reminds me a lot of our highly drafted defensive lineman from 2020, Javon Kinlaw, where there aren't a lot of sacks. And even actually, Drake Jackson has quite a few sacks for how few snaps he's played. He has a good sack percentage. He just hasn't had enough snaps. But the similarities that I was looking at there are the batted balls. I mean, I think Javon Kinlaw had four or five batted balls. Drake Jackson, I think, has 6. Last I was keeping track. And then also they both had interceptions. Granted, Kinlaw's was a pick 6 against the Rams. But obviously Jackson's was huge against the Raiders. So, yeah, I mean, I love him as a developmental player, but, yeah, he's not ready to be the other bookend yet. Ebukam is a real nice player, really great against the run, but not anywhere near like a D Ford was for the pass rush, the speed rush like you talked about. And then Omenahu, he's showing some signs, but, yeah, I mean.
Solid, but nothing special. Like, we have a lot of free agents on the defensive line this year.
Yeah, both of those guys.
I don't really think I'm in any way to. I don't think there's like this pressing need to keep either one of them. To be honest with you, unless it's a cheap contract where you can, get them for a lower number. I think maybe move on from Samson Ebukam. Maybe look to improve that. Unless if there's nothing on the market, then I say stay with it. Just because if you're downgrading and you're going just cheap just to go cheap, then I would say stay with Ebukam. But there's going to be some holes on this defensive line, just mainly because there are a lot of guys are free agents, and other than Armstead, possibly Kinlaw and Bosa, there's and maybe who am I thinking of coming back this week? I always forget his name.
Givens.
Those four. The other ones don't really. I mean, like, who knows? Maybe they have a whole new rotation next year. Because just down the stretch, they really haven't done much. It's been Bosa or bust. So it concerns me considerably. I mean, Mike in the comments says the Niners need more blitzes with Huff and Ward in the playoffs. They need something. They need to mix things up. You can't just go 4 down and play coverage, because I don't care how good your back end is. If you give guys a ton of time to throw, things are going to develop. And I think some of the Niners' coverage woes are coming from the lack of they're just not getting any pressure. I mean, if you let any play develop for as long as some of these plays develop, I mean, it's guys are setting their feet, they're doing their complete drop back, they're scanning and they're throwing, and then there's nobody within 2-3 yards of them. So we'll see, though. We'll see. I mean, we got this game, and who knows? Maybe the Niners turn it on in the playoffs. Maybe it's just they're playing possum. I don't know. I don't think NFL teams can really play possum. I think that's somebody just trying to explain why all of a sudden production has fallen off. So they figure, they're just playing possum, or maybe they're just having a hard time, So I wanted to get to the Damar Hamlin news. I didn't forget about it. During the NWO stream on Monday, the news hit. So I don't know. I was like out of it during the stream. It was like a really weird disconnected feeling once I found out that like someone had to be revived with CPR on the field. I'm not trying to be woke or anything like that, but I just that was kind of like the most insecure feeling I've ever had being on here talking about the 49ers when that happened. Just from your perspective, there's been some good news on his front, and we'll talk about it in a sec. But from your perspective, when that went down and you saw that, what was your mindset just seeing a player, have to be revived by CPR on the field and just collapsing the way he did?
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible feeling. I actually didn't see it live.
I didn't either. I saw it on a replay.
Yeah, I was going out for a boat cruise, a whale watching cruise, and the boat broke down, and so then we ended up not going on the cruise. And when we got back to the rest of the family, they were all we walked in, and the game had just been paused. And my cousin showed me a replay on Twitter of what happened, and it was very disturbing to see that happen. Anytime there's anything like that or serious, head trauma, it's disturbing. But to see somebody have to be revived with CPR, it's just, I'm thankful that they had the professionals there on site. I'm thankful to hear that he seems to be recovering about as well as could be expected. I heard a story today that when he came to, he asked who won the game, was the first thing he asked. And I thought that was encouraging. So, and just great to see everybody come together. I was sad to see people blaming T. Higgins, for putting a shoulder pad into him. It's just a football move.
Right. He was playing football. It's a contact sport. Guys get hit in the chest all the time. I mean, you look at the 86 NFC Championship game when Montana got knocked out by Jim Burt. He got hit right in the chest, right in the armpit, knocked out cold. My mom said something because when I told her about it and she saw the news broadcast, my mom's crying. Like, because it's we're in Bills country here. So I told my mom about it, and then she watches the news because I told her about it the next morning. Oh my gosh, dude. My mom was like broken down and crying and stuff, just feeling so bad about the kid. And and I told her today that there's a chance he's back and doing well as far as like brain wise. It was nice. She just like Ryan said, I haven't been excited about football till today. Yeah, it's been a couple days. Like, I'm kind of glad you postponed the stream till today because I don't know, I just been feeling kind of guilty. Like, what the hell are we even talking about? Whatever, dude's a really young kid, really good guy. I know everybody's getting on Skip Bayless for his insensitive remarks. Um, it's weird. You know, a lot of times when stuff like this happens, you see a lot of people do a lot of things that kind of put them in the spotlight and take it away from what the actual event is that's going on. So, like, you know, you see things like from ESPN or this channel, and this person's going in this long diatribe about the league and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, can we just like refocus on where it needs to be refocused here? I'm just glad that he opened his eyes from what they said. He can't speak, but he's asking questions via like paper, like writing down questions. And like you said, he asked if who won. And so if his brain isn't damaged like a lot of us thought it could be, just because of the amount of time he's, you know, he was in and out of consciousness, it's a good thing. I don't know if he ever plays football again or if he needs any assistance going forward. I'm sure with therapy he could probably learn how to speak again. But wow, that's my mom made a comment about, do you think maybe he had something congenital that might have contributed to it, or was it just the hit itself? And to be honest with you, you never really know. You know, guys get hit like that all the time, and I don't think possibly, or you know, personally, that he has a congenital issue. But you do worry about, you do think about stuff like that. You know, that a hit would cause his heart to go into cardiac arrest. But yeah, it was definitely something scary to watch for sure.
No doubt about it. I mean, it was interesting, you know, walking into it and having people, you know, sort of ask, well, you know, do you think the game will be resumed? And I said, there's no way they can resume this game.
No.
It's just it's too serious. You got to see what happens with Damar. Make sure he's okay first. That's the main thing. And luckily, the coaches, you know, got together. I guess Joe Burrow maybe was the first one apparently to say that they shouldn't play. And, you know, I'm glad that they sort of superseded what the NFL was saying, because I guess the NFL was saying, let's warm back up for 5 minutes and get the game back going. I think they made the right decision not to. And yeah, no, it's scary. I don't know if it's congenital. And it's kind of interesting that we have this world where we have such advanced medical systems now. And, you know, I'm sure that's something that could be tested for, but it's sort of like, most people don't have access to this medical care that we have. And so it's like, even though it's possible to test people for this type of thing, like most of us would never be tested for that. I'm sure Damar wasn't either. And a lot of times it's until something happens and they go back and figure it out. And I'm sure they probably will. But I'm just glad that he's doing better, and I hope it continues. And I hope the Bills are all okay this week, and the Bengals and everybody else. It sounds like a lot of the wives of players were upset by this, you know, understandably concerned for their husbands. And, you know, that the event that happened, it definitely does not have to be congenital. It's just like, if you have, you know, blunt force trauma to your chest, right as the electrical charge is going between the two sides of your heart, that can happen. It's happened in other sports, and it's happened, you know, to other folks. So, you know, I guess we don't know now, but hopefully we'll find out before too long.
My brother made a good point. He said, why didn't they stop the game when Tua got knocked out, to the point where his hands were, you know, all, you know, which is clearly neurological stuff going on. And he made a good point. I mean, sometimes with some of these concussions where guys are out, you wonder why they don't stop games. I wonder why it took someone going into cardiac arrest, which, you know, it's. I guess you can't say it's more serious. I mean, concussions are serious too. So, it's a good question. But you know, then it would be like every time there was a serious injury, they would have to consider stopping games. But they did the right thing by not restarting it. Looks like they might just go with the seeding, with two teams playing two less games or one less game, and not continuing that game, like, you know, picking it back up. So whatever they do, as long as the league is sensitive about what they're doing and cognizant of the fact that this is about the young man and not about the NFL, then I think we'll be all right. You know, sometimes these things get, like I said, the whole Skip Bayless thing, maybe he didn't mean the tweet in the way that he did, but the fact that he put it out there for public consumption, he took the tension away from who the attention should have been on. So,
Well, for what it's worth, I watched your stream and you did a great job with that. I'm really glad that I wasn't streaming at the time
it was
happened,
so
because
uncomfortable.
I don't know how I would have handled it. And everybody on your show did a great job. You guys showed, I thought, really good, reverence, respect for the young man's health. And it was weird being on the timeline afterwards too, knowing when it's kind of like okay to talk about Niner stuff again or whatever. It's sensitive stuff, and you don't want to offend anybody, and you want to make sure that that he's doing okay. And it sounds like that at least he's taking steps in the right direction. That's all we could really hope for.
Definitely. Somebody else had a bad medical situation happened. Super fan actor Jeremy Renner. A lot of youngsters know him as Hawkeye from the Avenger movies, Marvel. Big time 49er fan. He ran over himself accidentally trying to help people clear out, being buried in snow. He stepped out of his machine, which is a little bit different than a snow plow. It's like a plow, but it has almost like tank tires on it. I don't know if people can see. You can look it up exactly what kind of machine it ended up running him over one of his legs, where he had to have a tourniquet pretty much put on it. He lost a ton of blood, chest contusion. I mean, there's videos of him in the hospital where he's semi with it, kind of tweeting or having somebody tweet for him. Going through, he's in I think he's in ICU right now. He's in a bad way too, and he's a huge 49er fan. So just the fact that he's a 49ers fan and he's also a human being too, that was kind of a crazy situation. So looks like he's slowly getting better. I don't know if you're aware of who Jeremy Renner is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I saw your stream from Monday. And I was already aware of Hawkeye, and he's been in a few other shows, movies and whatnot.
He played Jeffrey Dahmer years ago, and I think it might have been some TV movie or something. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a big time actor and a big time 49er fan. And I'm just, prayers up that he's okay.
Yeah, I definitely had we had Brian Culp in the stream actually too. I told him, I was like, that was kind of a weird, odd stream. I was like, we got to have you back on under better circumstances. I felt so whatever after it happened. I didn't even really want to keep streaming, but but at least both of them are still alive. It seems like, DeMar is getting better to the fact that he's cognizant of what's going on around him, which is good. And then as far as Jeremy Renner goes, he's doing better too. So hopefully both of them make a full recovery. And death is not easily talked about, or tragedy is not easily talked about. So but it definitely needed to be addressed. So I figure we maybe move on to the next topic, but we definitely are cognizant and aware of everything that's going on. And I just wanted to ask you about it and get your feelings on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, just prayers up for both of these guys, and glad to hear that DeMar's doing better. And I'll have to check and see on Jeremy Renner. I haven't gotten an update on that yet.
John V says, Aaron, don't sweat it, man. It was a dark and weird time for everyone. Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah. A lot of people, I think my man, Wolf, he had a stream. Just him and another person talking, man. He had a lot of people watching. A lot of people were interested in that situation. I don't even think it was anything about the 49ers. It was everything about DeMar. But glad to see they're both doing a little bit better, and hopefully things get better from there too. So this is going to be a weird game coming into Sunday, mainly because the Niners will kind of have figured out by the time they start at, I think it's 20 after 4 Eastern time, what's going on with the Eagles as far as seeding goes. Looks like the Giants are going to be not playing a lot of their guys, so I would almost assume that the Eagles are going to win and they're going to get the number 1 seed. If the Niners win, they get the number 2 seed. I mean, they're going to have to go the long way. They'd have to hope that the Eagles somehow lose. There's a lot of different scenarios with who the Niners could play. I mean, there's just all sorts of craziness. And I just wanted to get your opinion on this whole seeding thing. Think the Niners do anything to help players or sit guys as far as how they go ahead playing against the Cardinals this Sunday, seeing how they might have a better idea of what their seeding will be by the time 1:20 Pacific time is happening?
Will the Vikings have played by then?
I'm not sure.
That would be the big one for me. If we know that the Vikings have lost and the Eagles probably have won, assumably, and that we're locked at the number 2, I could see us resting some guys. Kyle isn't really that type of guy, though. Yeah. I mean, I feel like Kyle is going to want to keep everybody sharp and play. I've been saying for a while, I wouldn't mind playing some of these last games more like preseason games. Maybe this will be the one, but I just don't see Kyle doing that. I mean, maybe Christian McCaffrey, because of the ankle, he'll get a little less run. I think we'll see a little bit of Debo, at least a little bit. I think we'll see at least a little bit of Elijah Mitchell, although Ryan from No Border Sports brought up a good point that Elijah Mitchell is a real quick starter. Week 1, he was off to a really fast start before he hurt his MCL. And then when he came in here in the middle of the season, I forget which game it was, it was like I was expecting some rust, and it was like he had never missed a beat. So maybe he needs less than someone like Debo, who's kind of been struggling with his weight all season and might just need some game reps to help get him into better game shape. But ultimately, if we didn't see Christian McCaffrey or Debo or Elijah Mitchell, I wouldn't have a problem with that, as well as Bosa, as well as, I mean, if you look at the Cards, they're, so many of their guys are out and so many of the rest of their guys are questionable. There's only a handful of guys on that team that are, expected to play. And that would be like Hollywood Brown, Dortch, James Conner, the running back, JJ Watt, and Marcus Golden. All the rest, literally, got everyone and tons of guys you don't are either out on IR or questionable to play. So we should be able to beat them even without all of our superstars, stars, and even some of our key starters, I think.
Tommy Huxley said the game is early. He said the Vikings are the early game. So yeah, you're right. If the Vikings, I mean, I know we're tied with them. Or no, we have a.
Yeah.
Are we tied?
I think we're tied with the Vikings.
So, but we have,
and then we have the better conference record. Yeah, we're 9-2 in conference. So we're the best NFC team against NFC teams.
Okay.
The Cowboys are 8-3, and the Vikings are 8-3 or worse.
So if the Vikings lose, the Niners really don't have to play anybody, because they'll end up tying them anyways, and they'll have the tiebreaker. Correct.
The other game, though, aren't the Cowboys tied with us too? Though, aren't they 12-4 also?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Cowboys would have to lose also, or no? I guess the Cowboys would have to lose also. We would have to make sure that these teams that we're beating with the tiebreaker don't actually end up with a better record than us.
I got some of my gaming buddies in here. They like to come in here and sabotage me mentally by talking about Family Guy, or my buddy Charles wants to get me a Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, they're not football fans, right? Especially Charles, but he knows that the Chiefs are a sensitive topic. So early in the season, him and Steven would come in the streams, and they would sit there, and Charles would always just make sure that he reminded me that the Chiefs kicked our ass in the Super Bowl.
Tell Charles to eat a Snickers. He misspelled Chiefs,
Oh,
like in that Snickers commercial, when they're like the Kansas City chefs.
oh, that's right. Yo, he
Yeah,
came
it
at
was
me
an
with
old,
some fire, and he misplayed it. He misspelled it.
or maybe it was on purpose. Maybe
Possibly. Yeah,
possibly.
and as far as Steven
If he's
goes,
old like
he's
us.
not a football fan at all, but he says he enjoyed or has enjoyed listening to the streams and getting to know about football. I've had people on like Jesse and other people in the past who are really just they're like verbal assassins with how they can talk about and how good they are talking about the game. So appreciate you both coming in here, even if you're just here to bust my balls. It means a lot to me. We'll probably be playing some Red Dead Redemption tonight. I don't know if you know what that game is. Cowboy game.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. We were on there last night, just going into town and running over NPCs and killing lawmen and stuff. It's pretty fun. I haven't done it in a while, so I want to go back to Brock and talk about the fact that both of us and maybe a lot of 49er fans, the one thing we hadn't seen is him be behind or be in a situation where the surroundings were not ideal. And I don't know, man. I don't think I've ever felt this calm with anybody since for a while. He even when we were behind, I just got a sense that he threw the pick that was intended for Kittle, kind of showed his lack of arm strength a little bit, but I think the throw itself was late and inaccurate. So I don't really get out. The fact that he took the shot, I'm always happy for that, because with Jimmy, you never would have saw that. Jimmy just didn't attempt those kind of throws. But just especially the final drive that led up to the field goal, showed me a lot of poise for 7th round, last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. Did that do a lot for your mental kind of psyche, or just your feeling of like what you're, because I know it's been kind of a feeling out process for you too. You want to see what this kid's made of in less than ideal circumstances. So what was your feeling just overall in that game, seeing him kind of be put in situations that were brought on either by the defense not being able to play well, or with him, throwing an interception earlier and, coming back and being poised and confident and driving them down the field for what would have been the game-winning field goal had Robbie Gould not missed it.
Yeah, no, he was great on that drive. He hit Ayuk several times. Brock, I mean, he showed a little bit of lack of arm strength, but I think the 2 passes that he threw, both of them where he was kind of shuffling or scrambling left, stepped left and threw right. And so as long as he's not doing something like that, I think he has pretty good arm strength to make most of the throws we need him to make.
Yeah, that's very functional arm strength. That's what I think.
Well, part of it is really good footwork, and so if his footwork suffers, then his arm strength will go with it. And then there's also a chance that oblique and rib injury isn't fully healed too, so he may regain a little bit more strength as time goes on here, moving into the playoffs.
Forgot about
assuming that gets healed up 100%. Sometimes things come off the injury report, but they're not 100% healed, and so that's a possibility as well. So yeah, I mean, like you said, we haven't really seen him face adversity. The closest thing to the Raiders game was just right when he first came in against the Dolphins. We were losing 7-3 at that point, but that was very early in the game, much different than losing at halftime, obviously. And the Niners historically have not fared well in that situation. I forget the stat, but it's something like 23-2 or 27-2. And this was one of the 2 times where we've come back after losing at the half. So, I'm really happy with Brock. I keep pinching myself that this is our 3rd string option for this season. I did write in my article, though, that, he may not be the long-term answer with that arm strength, but, arm strength can be overrated too. So, and I was just emotional during the game. I was, watching with family members, and I was like, I'm worried. I was worried during the game. And then when Mason scored the TD, my family was like, all right, are you okay now? You fine now? And I'm like, no.
No, Right. I had an uncle. Okay, he texted me during the NFC Championship game last year against the Rams after we were ahead, and he's like, "You guys got this," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you shouldn't have said that." And of course, we ended up
Uh,
losing.
well,
Texted me
yeah,
back
and
after the game. He's like, "Hey, my bad. I didn't mean to." I'm like, "Dude, you've watched enough football in your life. You know how this
wait
trash
till it's
goes."
over.
Oh my
Wait till it's
gosh.
over.
Oh, I was so upset. I wasn't mad at him, like really, but I was just like, "How ignorant are you? Like, you're good now? Are we good now? Like, you all right? Your team's gonna
Well,
win this." And I'm just like,
that was like I had a Chiefs fan come at me during the game when Gold, missed the field goal after Brock drove us down the field. Gold missed the field goal from 41 yards out, and then obviously we ended up winning. And I was like, Ty, you got to wait till the game's over before you talk. You should know better.
right,
But with the Mason touchdown, I was not okay because I was like,
there's too much
no, we
time left.
shouldn't have. We shouldn't have run it in. We should have run the ball and run the clock down and kicked a field goal. And granted, Gold did miss a field goal, but we would have been a lot closer. I don't think he would have missed from a chip shot distance. And you don't even give them a chance to do what they did, to where they score the TD, then we go down, and then Gold missed. And anyway, so there's some question of how many timeouts they have. If we could have really drained the clock, I'm not sure about that, to be honest. But my gut was saying run the ball, run the clock, kick the field goal, do not score a touchdown. Certainly don't score a touchdown 2 plays after being, first down on around the 16-yard line or 15-yard line, whatever it was. I mean, we had time to run at least 5 or 6 plays, which I think would have run a lot of the time off the clock.
Yeah, it was that game. I was the defense concerned me. I was pretty comfortable with Brock for the most part. I mean, you always hold your breath a little bit when the ball goes out of screen and it follows, and you wonder if it's going to be picked off or not. But the whole just the way the defense was playing in that game, yeah, I felt the same thing. I'm like, why did we give these guys so much time before the end of the game? And sure enough, he that they went and drove down and got the game, tied it and made it go into overtime. But man, you're right. It could have been totally not unnecessary if we just, bled a little clock. But hey, in the end, they got the job done. As bad as the defense was playing, they came up clutch in overtime. Bosa didn't get the sack. The Niners didn't have any sacks in that game, but he pushed the offensive lineman and bullied them into the lap of the quarterback, which caused the errant throw. And then, Gibson returned it within to the 10-yard line or something. So it was, there's no way he was going to miss 2 field goals, right? I was thinking to myself, if he misses this one, he's not going back on the flight home. And sure enough, he made it. Definitely gives me concern that the Niners need to do something about their kicking game, because I think both their kicker and their punter have underperformed at times this season, for whatever reason. Robbie Gould's an old guy. He's got short range, and he makes a lot of kicks that you don't expect, and then he misses the ones that you think that are gimmies. So I don't know. That game was a little stressful. Just being we should have, ass whoop these guys, but they came out slugging. So real quick from Charles, he gave me a $1 super. I appreciate that, my man. I will see you hopefully later playing a little Red Dead Redemption. Let's turn our attention to our offensive stars that shined in that game. One being Mr. Brandon Ayuk, over 100 yards. He's 45 yards away, I think, from 1,000 this year. He made up for his drop early in the game with some clutch catches again on that drive, and just being clutch overall. How'd you think Brandon Ayuk played, and are you starting to see a different Brandon Ayuk as we're getting closer to the end of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been playing great. I think there were 3 games in a row where he had 80 yards or more in every game, or maybe it was 4 games even. And ever since then, he's been really good. He just sometimes hasn't gotten enough targets. But I think he and Brock are starting to establish some chemistry together. And you really saw it on that drive where Gold missed the field goal at the end. But there were like two or three. I think there was at least two Ayuk catches to start that drive, and then a really big CMC run. And so, yeah, I mean, Ayuk is, he's a great route runner. He typically has great hands. He did have the one drop at the beginning of the Raiders game, but he was also kind of stumbling when he dropped. So it's not like,
Yeah, that was kind of a weird. It's anybody who's tripped and fall in their life, that unbelievable feeling when you're falling that you cannot control yourself. Oh my gosh, I hate it. Anytime you play backyard ball, most of us never wore cleats. So it was like, oh, no. Like you can't catch yourself. Your stomach drops because there's nothing you can do to recover. I'm sure he was feeling the same way. And yeah, the throw was right there. Really, it was just a question of him just losing his footing. But he played dirty in that game, man. He was dirty. When I mean dirty, I mean he was manning up. That play, that one on the sideline, the one where Brock got hit, where a lot of people were like, why would Brock throw that? He got hit as he threw, idiots. Watch the game. Great presence of mind by Ayuk, who might not have been involved in the play per se, but the fact that his mind was still within the play. Because, some guys, when they're not getting the ball, they drift off. And maybe Ayuk has done it in the past, but the fact that he was able to get that pass that went straight up into the air like a punt and grab it and keep the Niners going on that drive was huge. He just won me over with that. That was kind of like the piece of resistance, catching a ball that wasn't really even intended for him. So real quick with Steven, $5 super chat. He says, Aaron likes to do the cha-cha. I repeat the cha-cha. Exactly. Thank you for letting everybody in the chat know that I like to do the cha-cha. Appreciate that. And David McNews/McNiner with the $2 super. You guys are super generous tonight. He said gold is fool's gold from 39 plus. Yeah, a little bit. He makes me nervous for sure. I don't know why he does that to us. My brother, okay, so he comes in my room, right? Knocks on the door. Game's pretty much over, right? Hey, been a good game. We're just talking like everything's great. And then he misses the kick. And I'm like, I looking at him and I'm thinking, should I blame him for what just happened? Or just like, I was like, what the heck, man? It was so like, I was so comfortable in the fact that we had this game, you know what I mean? And the fact that he missed it. I'm glad that they came back in overtime and won it, because that was, that kind of let the air out of me. I was wondering if the players would have been affected the same way. Pretty much it's a given, right? He's going to make that kick, and then he didn't make it. So, yeah, Christian McCaffrey also in that game was huge. Over 100 yards rushing. I had his stat line on Monday on the screen here, but he had a huge game, Ted. Niners made a huge trade in the middle of the season, getting Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey's a Hall of Fame type individual, just what he can do on the field. He has Hall of Fame ability. He could take over a game, being as small as he is. He's not the fast. He doesn't have that home run speed, say, like Mostert does, but he's just can be used in so many ways. He can run the ball. He can catch. He's just a multifaceted player. And this game was no different. I thought the Niners stars really stepped up in this game, and it just made me realize how loaded they are offensively, to where if the defense is not maybe at its best this postseason, they have more than enough weapons in reserve to go toe-to-toe with good teams. I mean, Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, you got enough. And if Elijah Mitchell comes back too. So what'd you think of Christian McCaffrey's game?
Yeah, 193 scrimmage yards, a TD. The guy is insane. Maybe best trade by the Niners ever. I don't know. He's getting into that category for sure. Super happy with Christian McCaffrey. You mentioned earlier too about pressures and at the end of the game. And you mentioned overtime. It kind of reminded me of Bosa's pressure, where he pushed Colton Miller right into Stidham's arm while he was throwing, which allowed Deshaun Gibson to make the game-sealing interception. Huge return. Raiders penalty gets us down to about the 3. And then it was just like, I think we ran one play and then said, forget it. We'll kick the field goal on second down to win the game. But yeah, pressures, you mentioned pressures being maybe better than sacks. And a lot of times they are. There was that one by Bosa. There was another one. While we didn't get many pressures or sacks besides Bosa, there was one in the Raider game by Omenahu where he got a pressure on a third down, and it caused an incompletion, and the Raiders kicked a field goal to make it like 10-3, or it was 10-7, something early in the game where they had the lead. I think it was 10-7 or 10-0. I'm not even sure. Anyway, bottom line is, though, Amena, who had a really nice pressure. And then a couple other pressures I would love to call out would be Eric Armstead's had a couple really nice pressures, both in the Commanders game and the Dolphins game, both leading to Jimmy Ward picks. And then obviously I want to call Eric Armstead during the Raiders game for he blew up the left guard on a 4th and inches or 4th and goal by the goal line, where we got a turnover on downs, and Eric Armstead blew up the left guard, and that gave T.Y. McGill a chance to come in and clean up the running back for a loss or no gain, certainly not enough gain to get a first down. So we got the ball back there. And then Armstead also had I think one of the only tackles for a loss against Josh Jacobs in the game.
He's a really good running back.
Really good. I mean, he was peeling off 6 to 9 yards on almost every first down. Even one first down, he got a first down. I mean, so it reminded me almost of like when Elijah Mitchell came in against the Chargers, and he was peeling off, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards a run, nothing less than 6. And yeah, he's a horse. And also beyond that, it's like the first tackler, except for Armstead that one time, never gets Josh Jacobs. It's always the second or third guy that makes the tackle on him. He's quick and powerful and great balance. So and a big guy.
We got about 8 minutes here left. I wanted to wrap it up because I know you have a hard out. Let's. I figure we talk
2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes. All right.
Yeah.
We got J.J. Watts in this final game. 49ers hopefully can send him home with an L. One of the best players in the NFL in a very long time. Look, injured through his career, but one of the greatest pass rushers probably of this generation for sure. So love him to death. He's a great guy, community guy, but we got to send him home with a loss, guys. Let's not screw the pooch on this one. Would you agree that Huff and Demo need a bounce back game versus the Cards to go into the playoffs with?
Absolutely, yeah,
definitely,
yeah. They both got picked on a little bit in the last game, and the last several games, both of them have shown some weakness.
David Blow is Blau. I guess David Blau, not Blow. Well, wow. I hope he blows. David Blow to start. He's their 4th quarterback this year, and no Hopkins. The Niners can't lose. They can't lose this game, man. Right? They can't. There's just. I mean, if they sit a lot of guys, maybe. But I don't know, man.
You can lose any NFL game, but
right.
This would be particularly embarrassing given how many guys are out or questionable for the Cards. I mean, there's just nobody there. None of the stars other than Hollywood Brown and Connor, I guess.
And then
and JJ Watt, which maybe he'll have a big, last hurrah against McGlinchey. I wouldn't be shocked.
Better not. I hope Purdy does a couple whirly birds on him like all those other guys do to us all the time when we try to sack him. Do that little whirling dervish where they spin around 500 times and then throw it. Oh, as a 49ers fan, that's the one thing I'm going to say before we get out of here. The Niners, it's 2023 and they still can't deal with mobile quarterbacks who can run. They still haven't figured out a way to stop it. Hopefully 2024, the 23-24 season, we finally figure out how to stop quarterbacks that can run, because up to this point in this Shanahan-Lynch era, since 2017, still can't figure it out. That's the one thing when I watch games.
Watch for J.J. Watt blocked batted balls. He had a lot against us with Lance in Arizona. week 5 of 2021. And, that was one of the things that I didn't write in my article, but I should have. Purdy got a lot of blocked balls against the Raiders. He's had a lot of blocked balls all the way through. So it's his height and learning to look off defenders and fool them with his eyes a little bit better.
He's going to get it. He gets at least 1 block ball a game, if not 2, because he's just a smaller guy. And he stands in the pocket and delivers, He's not always scrambling. He can scramble from pressure, but he's not like coming out from under center and running from jump. And I guess the last thing is predictions for the game. Niners win, I would assume.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll cover by halftime. I don't know if it'll hold up for the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm not going to do a score prediction, but I think the Niners win this game regardless, and go into the playoffs as the number 2 seed. And there's a litany of teams we could play, guys. We could play the Packers. We could play Seattle. We could play the Giants. Personally, on a personal basis, I don't really want to see the Packers just because of how yucky we looked on defense against the Raiders. If anybody, I would love to see Seattle again so we could beat them for a 3rd time this year, personally, or the Giants. But then again, Danny Dimes can run the ball. So do we really want to see the Giants? They're kind of scary good in a way, even though they're not super impressive when they do it. I don't know, but that's going to do it for us, guys. We're going to get out of here. We appreciate all the love and support in the chat. My dog Ted, he's fighting some jet lag. Got home last night, and he braved the weather and some bad turbulence, but he's here back with us. So we will see you guys next week on Wednesday, same time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Pacific time. So go Niners, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.